From the hidden secrets of our backyards to the realities of the third world, we take a raw and real look into the challenges and the pursuits of social justice. Welcome to The Point. The Point podcast is brought to you by The Point Foundation, offering healthcare, entrepreneurship, and education in rural Haiti. Visit lapointefoundation.org to find out how you can get involved. A daughter of Pakistani immigrants, she witnessed her parents build and dedicate their lives to inclusion through their involvement in educational and religious organizations. This included Islamic institutions like mosques and schools. After graduating from with a degree in psychobiology, she started her family and dedicated her time to raising children. But she realized there was a gap existing in women's leadership in her local Muslim community. So she partnered with like-minded women and established the Muslim Women's Organization in 2010. Join me in today's conversation with Fatima Saied as she helps to educate us on topics that many of us know little about, including what it means to be Muslim, myth-busting of negative stereotypes, and an invitation to learn more and get involved. Tell us about yourself and how you got started on this journey, Fatima.
So I am a Florida native. I've been in Florida my whole life. My dad came as an immigrant in 1970, and he landed in Miami. So he started his family down there in Miami, in Hialeah, the city of Hialeah, down there in South Florida. So that's where I was most of my life growing up. And then I got married. I met my husband in college. He was from Tennessee. And we just decided to stay closer to my family. So we got married and moved to Orlando, which was close enough that we could just drive down whenever. So I'm actually from South Florida, but I've been here a good 25 years off and on, in Central Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I wish that we were closer to the beach. That's the only thing I say. How did we get into the only landlocked city in Florida?
I know. But, the good thing is I'm down in Miami so much, I feel like the maximum we're away from Miami is 2 months. And then we're back there and there's so many. Yeah, it's a very different world. I love that. Just grew up by the beach. And for this 1 year growing up, I actually lived in Boca Raton. Okay. And we were right on the intercoastal, so across the street from the beach.
Oh, cool.
And at night, I would sleep with my windows open and you could hear the ocean. It was it's such a good memory. I love that feeling.
Yeah. I love that too. Oh, that's great. So you have a really unique education background too. So tell us a bit about your education. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Miami and I graduated with a bachelor's in psychobiology, which is just kind of neuroscience. It was almost a double major. It was the biology of the psychology of people, behavioral medicine, things like that. And my goal, my career path, when I started college, I just wanted to be a doctor. Culturally, that's just a thing, right? From my family, it was just oh, you should be a doctor. And I kind of bought into that. And halfway through, in my junior year, I decided I don't really want to be a doctor. And I started off just biology, went to psychobiology. I wanted to go into research and become a professor, get my PhD, all that fun stuff. But then after I got married, I decided, what, I want to follow the path go down the path that my mom went down, where she was a stay-at-home mom and she raised all of us, my siblings and I. And she was very involved in the community, started a Sunday school, did youth programs for the kids. She did everything with us when we were growing up, and I loved it. So I wanted to do that. So I took a break from school, and also one key factor was I got married and I moved to Orlando. In Orlando at UCF at the time, there was no, the sciences were not really strong. There was no neuroscience program at UCF at the time that really I could have gone into. So then I decided, you know what, it's just a sign. I just need to take a break and really focus on my family. And I did. And 25 years passed. Wow. And I just had kids and I got busy with just my kids and my family and I was there for them. And I remember when I was in undergrad, the head of the department, Dr. Durrell, she was the head of the psychology department. When I took the first class with her, she introduced herself and said that she went back to school, to college, after all of her kids were out of, elementary school and out of the house, and that's when she went back to college. And I saw her as an example of something I I want to be like that. I want to be there for my kids, but then also pursue my career. And there's no rush in it. Right.
It's good.
So
Yeah.
that's what I did. And then a couple of years ago in 2020, in the fall, there was this opportunity it just came my way. I was working at this organization. It was more of like, I was a volunteer first. We started this organization and it transitioned into a job for me, but I never studied it. I never studied nonprofit management. And then I saw this opportunity for Muslim philanthropy, a fellowship in Muslim philanthropy and humanitarian studies. And I thought, you know what? It spoke to me like, I need to do this, it's an opportunity to go back to school and study something that I really love. And I'm working in this area. So I just applied for this philanthropy fellowship, not realizing that I actually have to get into college. I had to apply to grad school at Indiana University. Before they could accept me in the fellowship, I had to be accepted into grad school. So I went through that process.
Wow. Yeah. That's a heavy process.
I didn't realize I would be in grad school, and suddenly I was in grad school and
great.
I was part of this fellowship. And then by the time the fellowship was done, I was already halfway to my master's. And then I just made the decision. They had the opportunity for me to people that were part of the fellowship could stay on and have a partial scholarship to finish up their master's. So I'm doing that now. I'm at Indiana University at the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, getting my master's in philanthropic studies.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Thank you. So I'm in college when my kids are in college.
Yeah, good for you. Well, you look way too young to have children in college.
Oh, thank you. I have
like,
two
what?
college graduates. I have two college graduates, actually.
Oh yeah.
And then one of them is in college right now, and one is graduating high school. And then I have a little middle schooler. So yeah, I have 5 kids.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. We just had our first baby. So
that's so fun.
Good for you for having 5. That's a lot of work.
It was fun. I loved it. That's why I wanted it so badly. And it's been a lot of fun. And now my kids I can enjoy them. I was 23 when I had my first baby. And now she's, 24. And I still feel like I'm young enough that we can go and watch movies, and we can, we watch the same shows, and we can go out to eat and grab a coffee. And it's really nice. I like it.
That's so fun. I love that. So talk to me a bit about growing up Muslim. Maybe even if you feel comfortable, can you give us an explanation? I think we hear Muslim, and to be honest with you, I feel like the average American, we don't really know what it is, what that means and what the beliefs are. So can you help educate us a bit on it?
Yeah. So the name of the faith is Islam, and a Muslim is somebody who practices Islam. Right. Okay. So like a Christian practices Christianity, a Muslim practices Islam. And our faith is founded on, there's 5 pillars is what we call them, right? So there's 5 fundamental things that Muslims, for the most part, subscribe to, right? And the first and most important thing, the thing that really makes somebody a Muslim, and the only really requirement to become a Muslim, is to profess the faith in one God. And it's the same God that everybody believes in, just God, right? You believe that there's just one God. And you believe that Muhammad was his prophet, right? So it's a 2-part belief. There's no God but God, the one God, right? And that Muhammad, we say peace be upon him after we say his name, was a prophet. So being a Muslim is believing in the teachings of Muhammad, like how he lived his life, Muhammad, peace be upon him. And also we believe he received revelation, just like there were holy books in the past, right? There was the Torah and there's the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament, all of that. We believe in our holy book is the Quran, which is, it's in Arabic, and it was something that was transmitted orally in the beginning, right? So a lot of people memorized it and stuff, but it's the Quran, we believe, is the word of God and God's teachings to us, message to us. And the Sunnah is the life of our prophet and how he lived and what we can learn from it. So that's what our belief is founded on, right? These 2 sources. And that's that first pillar. And then in addition to that first pillar, there is, we pray It's called Salah. We pray 5 times a day facing Mecca. And again, that looks different for different Muslims, right? But there is this concept of prayer. And prayer is more, it's not just supplicating to God. It's like a formalized way of praying where there's movements and there's, things that you recite. And then we fast during the month of Ramadan. That's the third pillar. So Ramadan is actually coming up in April. April 2nd, I think, is when it starts. And we fast during Ramadan, which is like from sunrise to sunset. We don't eat. And then the fourth pillar is zakat, which means we give a percentage, 2.5% of our wealth every year to help people that are in need. There's like 8 categories of people that we can help, but it's a requirement, at least 2.5% of our wealth. That's surplus wealth, right? So any gold that I have, property that I have, the value of it. And then the fifth pillar is once in your life, making a pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, right? And really coming together as a global community, like experiencing that and going to these places, where our prophet lived. And so that's the fifth pillar. So those are like the 5 common things you'll see in any Muslim, right? How they practice, though, the things they do, what they wear, and all those things differ from person to person and where they're, located, the country they're in, and from different time to time, the people from the past don't necessarily practice exactly the same way that we practice because it adapts to the faith that you're in. So you have your fundamental core beliefs, but practice changes depending on the time and the place. So we believe that there's like scholarship, like people go back to those primary sources and interpret them and apply them to the time and place that we're in. So that's why you'll see, Muslims in, say, Pakistan or India practicing a little bit differently than Muslims that are in, say, Egypt, or Muslims that are here. They're just, the practice is very different. So you can't really say Muslims do this or Muslims don't do that, because it looks different for different people. Not everybody will wear a hijab like I do, or, it's just different for everyone. But if they're believing in God and our prophet and, fasting and praying and doing those fundamental things, and they're saying that they're a Muslim to me.
Yeah, thank you for breaking that down. That's really helpful. And so from what I understand too, is you don't have to be like born a Muslim, right? You can choose to be a Muslim.
Yeah. You just, you testify. Like with us, it's like, we call it shahada. So it's like you are making a declaration. You're testifying something. So it's just you declaring your belief. Yeah, I believe in one God, that there's no God but the one God, right? And the name for God is Allah, is in Arabic, the name, right? But Christian Arabs call God Allah as well, right? It's just how you say God in Arabic.
So I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's not like another God. It's just God. We believe in God, right? So as long as you testify that and you make that statement, right, that I believe in God and I believe that, Muhammad is a prophet of God, you're good. You're a Muslim. It's kind of an easy process. It's not like,
Well, I think about like Muhammad Ali. Would you consider that to be?
Yeah, he was Muslim.
So so I just remember like watching the movie and seeing like his kind of transformation of faith and how that happened.
And then, there are so many African-American Muslims, Black Muslims within every community. And that's like the biggest ethnic group when you look at Muslims in the United States, percentage-wise. I think I have to verify that. But it's a big bulk of it. It's not a foreign faith in any way. There's people all around the world that are Muslim. Just within our organization, we have South Asian women, Arab women, Black women, white women, Latinas, and there's just, all kinds of people.
Yeah, I appreciate you breaking that down for us. So talk to us a bit about the organization. How did it come to be? Was it from your own personal experiences of growing up Muslim in the United States, or tell us what fueled that?
Yeah, so we started this in 2010. And it wasn't anything I personally started, right? It was amongst a group of women. And it was like a bunch of us that actually grew up here in Florida. There were some people in that group that were even immigrants and not necessarily the ones that we grew up with, but we had all been meeting for different things throughout the years. And one of those women suggested, hey, we need a women's group. Like, we don't really have a space for Muslim women to lead. And all of us that grew up here amongst that group of women, we were very involved with activism, right? Like with community work as youth. Like I said, my mom started like youth groups and Sunday schools, all kinds of things. So we were very engaged as children, as girls. And then in college, we were like leading our Muslim student, organizations on campus. And then we left campus and tried to get involved in that way within the established institutions in our community. And there was no space really that was women led, where you felt like your voice is being heard, where you can really influence the direction of the work that's being done. There were places for us to maybe volunteer here and there, but it wasn't led by women for women.
Okay.
And we had so much experience in that work, And these women in that initial group, there were optometrists, there were doctors, there were, just stay-at-home moms, there were all kinds of people, teachers. We were doing all kinds of things at the same time. We wanted to do more and help our community and make a difference. Your experience, you see things and you want them to be different. And, you want to do something about it. And we didn't have any platform or any capacity to do anything about it. Right. And so we got together and had this meeting just at one of our friends hosted it at her home. And there was probably around 20 women there. And we really started building this idea, and we voted in a board of directors, came up with bylaws and did all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just grown since then. And the whole vision that we have, right? Our vision is a world where every Muslim woman has the opportunity to lead in the service of humanity, right? So we want that world. Muslim women should be able to step into those roles and have influence and have power, have their voices heard and make that difference. And that's what we do. We provide those opportunities and resources.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I love how it was very organic in the way it sounds, where you are already doing it. It was already happening and you wanted to invite other people into that space as well. Can you give us some examples of what it looks like? Like, what are some of the roles that you play in the community?
Yeah, so we have three main ways that we make a difference, right? So we see a problem or something, a gap, right? Or some need for Muslim women. And we address it in one of three ways, or ways sometimes they overlap, right? So we either provide leadership training, right? So we build skills and provide that leadership training opportunities. So an example would be, we have this Her Leadership Toolbox series. This coming weekend, we're going to have a conversation about imposter syndrome, right? Or we had last year like a series of sessions about grant writing or goal setting, just like building the leadership of Muslim women, really providing service learning kind of opportunities where we come up with a goal and then we come up with a program and we implement it to help our community. But the whole purpose behind it is to really train women to be leaders and to implement projects and achieve goals, right? So there's the leadership training piece. And then we have the educational piece, right? So we really believe, like, to solve some of the problems, we need to increase awareness about that issue, right? So a lot of that is gender equity related. So we have gender equity education. And an example would be, like, last year, we did a series of workshops about marriage and divorce, right? Like, what do you need to know according to our faith? What are your rights when it comes to marriage? What are your rights when it comes to divorce? What does a healthy marriage look like? So just educational kind of events, really empowering women in their faith and just in life, right? Like, a healthy relationship looks the same for everybody. It's not like a Muslim thing.
Right.
What does abuse look like? Abuse looks the same for everybody. It's not a Muslim thing. So just educating women about a lot of these topics, women's health, reproductive rights, reproductive and sexual health, these kinds of things we don't talk about. There's so much taboo around all these topics. So we really increase awareness and educate women about the issues that affect them.
Yeah.
And then the third thing that we do, the third bucket, I would say, is we call it sisterhood, but it's really community building. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of women are looking for spaces that they feel like they belong in these spaces, that they don't feel alone, right? For Muslim women, a lot of times you'll be at work and you'll be the only Muslim, or you'll
Mhm.
walk into a grocery store and you'll be different from everybody else. You know, we want to create spaces where
Mm.
you feel belonging and you feel supported. So we have this program for convert care. So like you mentioned, you asked before, you know, people can become Muslim, right? If women are becoming Muslim, just how to navigate that. You know, we
Yeah.
have a whole support group for that. We have a grief support group. We have this program, we call it the Hakima program. So anybody who needs emotional or spiritual support, they can reach out and they can talk to our Hakima, who is our chaplain. And just this whole idea that you are not alone as a Muslim woman in this community. And
Mm.
that really helps build the strength and power of each person.
Love
So those are like the three kinds of programs that we do. Everything will fall into one or the other, that category.
I love it. It sounds really holistic and really well thought
Yeah.
out. Do you have a success story either for yourself personally, maybe somebody that helped mentor you or somebody from the Muslim Women's Organization that you'd want to share?
I think, you know, each of our team members, like I see such beautiful stories just within our own team, right? Like there was this one team member, her name is Diana. So she had moved to Orlando. She didn't really know anybody. And there's this one big Eid, like Eid is our holiday. It's like a big celebration. And we are a partner in that, like we help sponsor it. So we had a table there and she kind of just walked up. This was the first time she was like in a Muslim space and she found our table and she just showed up and she was so excited, like, oh, yay, Muslim women, you know, to get involved with. And she just signed up to learn more. And then she started coming to this one event, you know, that we had. She is a veteran. And so she just had a very unique, you know, really beautiful story. But also she was very strong, you know, and she had so many skills to share. And she started just coming and getting involved. And she would come into events. And then we needed a volunteer to help lead a program to help other women like her who had become Muslim and were looking for a space. So she helped then develop that program and she's joined our team and she was
Mm.
one of our volunteers leading that program. And through that, she met so many people. She met other Muslim women. Her son made friends, you know, with other people's kids. And she just really started thriving in that. And then we got to the point that we needed to open up our own little resource center, which we did here. And she's actually a realtor and she really helped guide that
Mm.
process, helped us find a space. And, you know, she went from just somebody who was looking for any Muslim woman to just connect with, not being alone, a single mom, not knowing anybody, to then being really an important part of this organization and someone who helped establish something that is helping countless women
Mm.
now, right? So it's just taking that. There's so many stories just like that of one woman who showed up one time,
Mm.
just wanted to connect with other people, wanted to do something. And that person, we provide so many opportunities for leadership for Muslim women.
Mhm.
They come and they get involved in a way that they can't in other places. And then they end up leading programs and leading initiatives and really just growing into their power. And I've seen that
Mm.
countless times, you know.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like the words I am hearing are like connection and community. Like when
Oh,
you're
yeah.
able to find that, how empowered you can be to like step into the role that you were created
Mhm.
for. Uh,
Exactly. And then it's the same for like my own. I feel like through these years, I found my own voice, you know,
mm.
especially over these last couple of years, I've realized this. Like, I think people were a little bit surprised when I became, you know, president of the board eventually. I started off just as a secretary and then I became president of the board and then I became executive director. And I went from being really behind the scenes, quiet kind of person to somebody who really is comfortable expressing, you know, what I believe is right and really putting myself out there in ways that I never thought I would be able to do,
Mm.
you know.
I
So
love that. In the notes, we talked a little bit about informing people about the lives of Muslim women in order to build empathy. mutual respect and understanding. So for people who are not Muslim, or like for me, for example, I'm asking these really basic questions of saying like, hey, I don't even know. I know what I see on TV, but like, tell me. So how can we build that empathy and respect and understanding?
I think it has to do with personal connection. We really, as an organization, believe that it can't be formal, right? There are a lot of interfaith events and interfaith programs are very like structured in that, not structured, but formal. You have a panel of speakers sitting up there and it's very one directional, and we don't believe in that. We believe in friendships, that friendships are the way to really build that mutual understanding. We have to understand each other, and we can only understand each other if we're really building authentic relationships and friendships. So our interfaith events are very relational in that way. We're one of the partners for Interfaith Yoga Project, which, we just have one of the women that helped us start our interfaith iftar. And iftar is when we break fast together. Okay. In the very beginning, the first time we did it with one of our, we randomly just called the JCC. And just to find out if they have a women's group, because we thought, we want to connect with women of different faiths. So we just called the JCC. And this person named Candace answered the phone, and she just got so excited, like, oh my goodness, let's do something. And so she went and met up with one of our team members, Manije, and they just met for coffee one day, and they decided, you know what, let's just get people together in my home. So Manije invited people, and then Candace invited people, and we all got together at Manije's house, and we just had icebreakers. Like, we literally only had icebreakers for like a couple hours, and we had lunch, and that was the start of it. And then we decided, let's have it, and Ramadan is coming, like our holy month is coming, let's have an iftar where we break fast. And the JCC, or like Candace, right, and her friends at the JCC hosted our organization to come over there and have an iftar, and they were our hosts. And it just built this relationship. And then turns out when she had this idea of starting interfaith yoga, we were like, oh, we're on board. So we do interfaith yoga with them. And we still have our interfaith iftar every year. And with our interfaith iftar, the idea is we all have coworkers and neighbors that are not Muslim, right? They don't understand how our faith works, because all we really talk about is, oh, how was your day? And
right.
Did you, like,
it's sunny out or it's raining.
That's, you don't talk to your neighbors about other things, right? And it's awkward. It's weird. And you don't really want to invite them to some weird formal religious event where you're going to be preached at either. So we decided we're going to have these gatherings that are more like parties, where we just invite our friends that are not Muslim. So everybody, our members are sent an invitation, and they fill out a form of who they want to invite. And we send them an evite on their behalf. So then they come with their friends to this big party. We've hosted at restaurants, at different halls, and we have dinner, and we have icebreakers at the tables. And all we do is kind of tell them a little bit about, like, this is what you're going to be seeing today. This is what it's about. And then we spend most of the time, not necessarily with the presentation, but just sharing stories. Sometimes we'll have different women going up there sharing different stories. And we have icebreakers, and we eat together. We have henna and all kinds of things, and just have fun. We get to know each other, have icebreaker questions, and that's it. That's the whole evening. But through that, like, you have women that come every year. They just love it. And then you have more women bringing their friends. It's a very social event. We've just built these really strong friendships with women from all different faiths, and increased their awareness about our life in a very like personal way rather than a formal way. Our goal is never like we want to convert people. Our goal is that we all live in this community together, and as women, we need to be there for each other, and that's it.
That's so good. I look forward to my invitation this year. I want to come. That's so really fun. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yes. In April. So I will definitely.
Oh wow, soon. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Is there a common misinterpretation a lot of people have, or is there anything specific that you'd want to share to kind of like clear the air about some of the things that maybe are a stereotype that people don't know?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that's so much. I think in general, there's this idea that Muslim women are oppressed,
Okay.
that Muslim women don't have rights or are forced to do like these things, forced into marriage, forced into dressing how they dress or whatever it is, right? They don't have autonomy almost. And it's just disturbing to me because it's so far from the truth. And, you know, if you look into the history of our faith, in the year 640-ish, right? In the year 600, think of this like this is like the Western world was in the Dark Ages. And in those years, this man, Muhammad, peace be upon him, came to in Saudi Arabia and spread this message that women have the right to property. Women are equally human. You know, there is no original sin in our faith. There's women need to inherit, you know, and the wealth that women get, whatever they earn, right? Women, if any dollar that I earn is mine, it's not my husband's. If I choose to spend money on my family, it's charity. You know, nobody can take my property away from me. That's my property. And, you know, he taught that you have to get permission for a girl to get married to somebody. You have to get her permission. And these seem like basic things now, but can you imagine this was 600 and something? Right. And if you look at like Jane Austen novels, right? These women did not have property, not even say 200 years ago, right? Women didn't have property. Women were inherited. Women did not get an education. Versus in our faith, women were scholars centuries ago. The very first university in the world was started by a Muslim woman in Morocco. It's older than Oxford University. And she was able to start that university because she had so much wealth. She inherited that wealth. And she did something good for the world with it, right? And these stories are not what's shared, you know, and even personally. And not only that, like just the right to my body, in the sense that if you look at Muslim scholarship throughout the centuries, Muslim women are allowed to get an abortion, right? It's not this big sin prohibited, you know, and no way you can get that or anything like that. You know, we have a vast majority of scholars from throughout history have said up to 120 days, a woman can get an abortion, right? Without any sin. And these kinds of things, like the West does not know about. I'm saying the West, but I'm saying like people that are not Muslim. Right, and honestly, a lot of Muslims themselves don't know about these rights that they have. And, you know, like with me wearing my hijab, I wear my hijab because I chose to wear my hijab. Like my parents didn't make me wear my hijab. My husband didn't make me wear my hijab. Like I'm doing this because I want to do it because I want the world to know that I'm comfortable with who I am, you know? And I think also this idea that, like I mentioned, being forced to get married, like people have this weird preconceived notion that we're forced to get married or something. And I chose my husband. Like my husband and I fell in love. We met each other in college and then we got married. Like, and that's most of my friends. That's how it worked, you know? And this whole idea of arranged marriages and this and that, it's like, it's just a matter of being introduced to somebody, but you always have a say. Like it's always up to you to decide. And there are always in society people that don't do that, right? That are forcing women to do this and that are treating women awfully, violently. But those people exist in every society. And that doesn't have to do with my faith. That has to do with an awful person who's trying to justify his harm using this faith, right? And it's just completely ridiculous because it's antithetical to everything that we believe. So there's so much that I wish people knew and they don't get it because they don't take the time to ask or learn, right? They just watch it on the TV and think that that's the truth.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I even learned some things right now as you were explaining it. And I think that you're right. It goes back to like just creating genuine relationships and friendships. And like, it's so easy to, you know, judge people that we don't understand. And, sometimes if I overhear people saying stuff, I like to say, like, tell me, for example, like, tell me one Muslim, what's their name, and we say like, oh, well, and it's like, okay, well, if we've never even had a conversation with somebody, like, how do we know like what the realities are
Exactly.
of their life? So,
and another thing like that really I wish people knew, like Muslim women are heads of state at this moment.
okay.
Muslim women are prime ministers and presidents of countries around the world and have been for decades, right? Like Muslim women have been leaders. And we're living in a country where there has not been a woman president, right? So who are you to judge me and my faith?
Yes.
When I can 100% tell you, name you women that have been prime ministers of Muslim majority countries.
Yes.
And you're telling me I'm oppressed? Like, I think it's very easy to just think that we're better than others and other people, like make them this other thing when it's just so not that. Like it's, yeah. It's frustrating. It is. It's really frustrating. And they literally, I'm like walking down the street and they don't expect me to know English. Like literally I've had a man yell at me, learn some English. I was like walking with my girls, and we're looking at him like, is he insane? There's so much ignorance. Like, dude.
It's crazy. Do you think like that generationally things are getting better or worse within that like inclusion, like from what you experienced growing up to what your daughters experienced growing up? Or do you think that we still have a long way to go?
We're in a society where racism is a thing, right? I think it's become very clear, especially these past couple of years, that there are people who hate other people because of the color of their skin, right? So I don't think that's getting better. I think it's actually getting worse. These last few years, it's gotten worse. The outwardly racist incidents are worse, ever since, 4, 8 years ago, however many years. It's just been since probably 2015 or whatever. And it's not easy to be a Muslim in this society, but it's also not easy to be a woman of color in this society. So my children may not wear a hijab. My children may grow up here and dress like everyone else, but because they're brown, they still have to face that because their names are Maryam or Samiha or Zainab. They still have to face that. And they have faced it. They have had teachers make awful comments. They have had other students, on social media say things like, go back to where you came from and get raped. These kinds of things are happening to my girls now. And they didn't happen to me when I was a kid, so it's not getting better necessarily. I feel like that racism is bubbling up and it's getting really bad. And it's about racism and it's about hate and white supremacy, and that's there. And I think it's a societal thing we need to deal with because we're all being harmed by it, right? Not just Muslim people, but so many people. Yeah. And Muslim women really bear the brunt of it when you look at, because we are outwardly expressing our faith, right? Versus other people, other like Muslim men don't necessarily
that makes sense.
Dress the part, right? So we're easy targets. And then you have Black Muslim women who are even having a worse time of it. So it's not easy by any means, and at the same time, that hate has grown, but also there has been more people reaching out, trying to counter it as well. So there's both, I've made some really beautiful friendships and relationships in these past few years at the same time. And so it's, it's not easy by any means, but I know that we're not necessarily alone.
That's good. Yeah. And I feel like even conversations like this, putting it out there and getting it published and for people to be able to, hopefully I can be the awkward one that asks, questions, I'm like, I feel uneducated, like help me understand, But I think we have to do that sometimes. We have to say like, I only know what I see on TV, like, but I'm willing to learn and like, hopefully people can have grace with each other and as we become more educated and inclusive. So for listeners that are hearing this, like for like number one, is there any like last words that you want to make sure like that people hear, or anything that's on your heart? And then number two, let's be sure to get your website out there and any other contact info that you want.
Yeah. So what do I want people to leave with? I think the main thing that I feel everybody should know is that you can't take other people's word for my story.
Okay.
Right? That it's very important, like you mentioned, to really get to know me or a Muslim neighbor or a Muslim coworker, anybody that's different from you, honestly, even if it's not a Muslim, right? Don't make judgments based on what you see on the outside or what you see in the media. I think it's so important as human beings to really connect with other human beings and get to know people before you form any judgments about them. And also, I think as a faith, we believe in human dignity and mercy and kindness. Like these are really fundamental parts of our faith, mercy. And I wish people knew that. I wish people understood that my faith is one founded on mercy and peace and not founded on anything else that people are telling you it is.
Right.
And it's easy to know this if you just get to know me.
That's so good. So for listeners that want to learn more or connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, my organization is the Muslim Women's Organization. Really not creative with that name. We're Muslim, we're women, and it's an organization.
That's great. People make it too complicated. So put it right on there. Yeah.
We are what we are. And the website is www.themwo, which is THEMWO.org. And my email address is S like Sam, ADAF like Frank, at MWO-Orlando.org.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes as well on the website so people can connect directly there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this platform because I think these are the kinds of things that can really change hearts and minds, right? Like hearing stories and getting to know people. So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you. I really enjoyed getting to know you more, and thank you for sharing. And hopefully Orlando's not that big, so I'm hoping I get to meet you someday.
Yes, anytime. Please stop by. Our address is on the website. You have my email address. Everybody's welcome. Come by, say hello.
We know you're busy, so we appreciate you giving us the gift of time by joining us today. To get in touch with Fatima, support their work, or make a donation, visit MWO-Orlando.org. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at La Pointe Foundation. That's La Pointe, POINTE, and visit us at lapointe.life. Until next time, keep on fighting for justice.